Okay, thank you. We are live. Sergeants, will you begin your recordings? Cloud is up.
Cloud is rolling.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing on housing and buildings. At this time, will all panelists please turn on your videos? To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices on vibrate or on silent mode. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we're ready to begin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Robert Cornegy, Chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings. We're here today to hold a hearing on a bill to renew the city's J51 tax incentive program. Nearly 2 years into a global pandemic that put this city on pause in many ways, we want to make sure we're doing what we can to make sure the city doesn't fall into disrepair. J51 is an important tool for preserving affordable housing in New York and for ensuring properties are kept in good repair. Through the J51 program, property owners can apply for a tax exemption or abatement for certain reduced or eliminated estate taxes. At the same time, J51 is meant to ensure the affordability of housing units receiving these tax benefits by requiring rent stabilization for as long as the J51 benefits are in force. When properly applied, J51 is an important way to make sure the city's affordable housing stock is well maintained and its affordability protected. Periodically, the state legislature authorizes this city council to renew this program. The city council most recently renewed the program through June 2020. The pre-considered introduction we are hearing today, sponsored by Councilmember Yeager, extends the J51 tax abatement and exemption program retroactively through June 30th, 2020. I'd like to thank my fellow committee members who I'd like to ask committee council to announce those in the room.
Sure. Today we're joined by council members Chin, Jonai, Rivera, Rosenthal, and the sponsor of today's legislation, Councilmember Yeager.
We'll now hear from bill sponsors who would like to make a statement about this legislation. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Committee Counsel Audrey Sun to go over some procedural items for today's remote hearing.
Thank you, Chair. We will at this time hear from any bill sponsors who would like to speak about the bill. Councilmember Yeager.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You described it so eloquently and so judiciously brief that I don't think I have to add anything, but I'm an elected official and have a microphone, so here we are. This has been long in the waiting because it's really necessary for our city's housing stock, for the ability of the city to keep itself from falling into disrepair, and really to prevent the disinvestment that we saw in real estate going back into the 70s, even in the 80s. This is not expensive, and it's absolutely necessary. It's been a while waiting. Here we are today. We have only about 32 days left to the session of the council. It's important that we pass this now, Mr. Chairman. I'm very grateful for your leadership on this topic in general, but more broadly for the last 4 years that you've been a mentor of mine and a good friend, and you've been talking the common sense about the things we need to do in this city to keep our neighborhood strong, vibrant, and from falling into disrepair and disinvestment. And for that, I'm very grateful. And I give it back to you, Mr. Chair, with my thanks for that and also for your co-sponsorship of this bill.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Yeager, and thank you for your steadfast advocacy for communities like ours. And a lot of people aren't used to me saying that, and they don't understand there are communities like ours that are really suffering during this time. So thank you so much, Councilmember Yeager, for your steadfast commitment and advocacy around issues, especially around small homeowners and buildings and residents. Thank you.
Thanks very much. My name is Audrey Sun. I'm counsel to the City Council's Committee on Housing and Buildings. Before we proceed, I would like to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called on to testify, at which point you will be unmuted. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question, please use the Zoom raise hand function, and I will call on you in order. In the interest of time, we will limit council member questions to 5 minutes. We did receive a note that the administration will not be appearing at today's hearing. They did submit written testimony for the record, which will be available online following the hearing. At this time, we will move directly into testimony from members of the public who have registered to speak at this hearing. Again, as just a reminder, unlike our in-person hearings, we will call individuals one by one to testify. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the Sergeant at Arms will set the timer at 3 minutes for you to begin. Periodically, I will call a list of names of those who will speak, so please listen for your name to be called. We will begin by hearing from Mike McGee, followed by Judith Goldiner and Sam Stein.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael McKee. I'm a treasurer of Tenants Political Action Committee, and I've been a tenant organizer and advocate for 51 years. I don't have much to say here except, number one, I want to object to the sneak attack nature of this hearing. For you to send out a notice on the Wednesday afternoon before Thanksgiving, before a 4-day holiday, for a hearing on Monday, I'm sorry, that does not pass the smell test. Secondly, this is like deja vu from 2 years ago. When you renewed the rent law, you renewed J51 again for a year without acknowledging all of the criticism that had been made of the program. And here we are again at the end of a term limited city council, and you're trying to sneak this through the end of the year. Shame on you. This is basically a program that needs drastic reform. It needs to be targeted to genuinely affordable housing. Everyone knows that. It is simply a misuse of scarce tax subsidy dollars for you to be subsidizing market rate co-ops and condos to improve the value of their investments. It's wrong. Secondly, you're totally ignoring the lack of enforcement by the city and the state of the rent regulation requirements of this program, which have been well documented in the testimony 2 years ago by the Community Service Society and the Legal Aid Society. I mean, how can you sit there with a straight face and pass this bill when you know that HPD and DHCR are not going to enforce the tenant protection provisions of this law? I mean, come on, get serious, guys. Don't do this. This is really, really a disgusting move on the part of the city council, and we object to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McGee.
Thanks very much. We will now hear from Judith Goldiner, followed by Sam Stein and Joe Condon.
Starting time.
Hello, my name is Judith Goldner. I'm the attorney in charge of the Civil Law Reform Unit at the Legal Aid Society. And I am also distressed that 2 years after the council last renewed J51, we are giving essentially the same testimony again, because the council has done nothing to respond to the very serious concerns that we raised 2 years ago and have raised for many years. This is a very expensive as of right program, costs almost $300 million in lost taxes. And a great deal of that money goes to market rate co-ops and condos who do not need subsidizing. What we really need to see here is a complete reworking of J51 so that J51 serves the purpose of helping low-income tenants with bad conditions, or helping HDFC co-ops who need money for repairs just so that they can continue to stay affordable. This is a program that is not targeted to ensure affordability, and as Michael said before, there's basically no enforcement to make sure that the tenant the tenant rights are respected and that what the city is paying for, supposedly paying for, with this program actually achieves its goal. We need to make sure that if you're going to have a program like J51, it goes to making sure that apartments, that we target it to the buildings that need the most help and make sure that we ensure that tenants get the rights that they're entitled to. Happy to answer any questions, but honestly, I am very distressed that here we are 2 years later giving the same testimony, and we're not seeing any changes to this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. I would also like to note at this time that we've been joined by Councilmember Lewis. We will now proceed to testimony from Sam Stein, followed by Joe Condon and Ryan Manel.
Starting time.
Thank you very much. I don't have much to add because that testimony that Judith Goldner just presented was developed by our organizations together, by the Legal Aid Society and the Community Service Society. And it is substantially the same as the testimony we presented 2 years ago. I went back into the data to see if the facts on the ground had changed, if the money was being used differently, or if it was costing substantially less. And the answer to those questions was no. The program has not changed. The problems with the program have not changed. And so refreshing it without addressing longstanding criticisms would be an error. I'll read now from the section on what we believe should happen to improve this program. The following changes would significantly improve it. Eliminate all benefits for co-ops and condos except those being developed with government assistance. Replace the current system of restrictions on exemptions and abatements with one that can more directly target benefits to lower rent apartments, ideally by setting a limit on the average rent on apartments in buildings eligible for the benefit. The outdated strategy of basing eligibility on geography should definitely be abandoned. Finally, improve the coordination of the J51 benefit with the rent increases allowed in rent stabilized buildings for major capital improvements by requiring landlords to seek a J51 exemption before applying for these rent increases, and document the outcome to the state agency that administers rent stabilization. And by reducing the rent increases by 100% of the value of the tax benefit instead of only 50%. We believe these are the kinds of changes that would make J51 an appropriate form of tax subsidy. Without it, it is a deeply regressive program. Thank you.
Just quickly, have you submitted those recommendations for?
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from Joe Condon, followed by Ryan Manel and Daniel Benedict.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Joe Condon. I'm testifying on behalf of the Community Housing Improvement Program, also known as CHIP. CHIP members are long-term owners of rent-stabilized housing. They have good relationships with their tenants. They have become part of the communities in which they provide housing. Our members want their tenants to be happy. They want to provide quality housing, excellent services, and they don't really want to evict their tenants. Reauthorizing the J51 tax abatement will help ensure that tens of thousands of units of rental housing remain rent stabilized. More importantly, it will also ensure that tenants of already rent stabilized housing are able to enjoy improved living conditions as the buildings they live in get much needed work done. Whether it is new boilers or roofs from damage from recent hurricanes or storms, replacing windows to be more energy efficient, or installing a new elevator rather than repairing the one that keeps breaking down, the J51 program enables affordable housing providers to do what is right for their tenants. Rather than patchwork repairs, these providers are able to replace entire building components and make lives better for their tenants. From surveys of our membership, we see that the J51 program is heavily relied on in outer borough neighborhoods, mostly neighborhoods where low and middle income families live. Many owners in those areas have projects that were recently completed or are soon to be completed, who are counting on the J51 tax benefit to make the numbers for the project work. We have also discovered that several projects could not be completed by the June 2020 deadline for COVID-related reasons and are now excluded from applying for that tax abatement. These housing providers dutifully performed important building improvements during a time of great fiscal difficulty and uncertainty, when deferring the project would have been an easy choice. Reauthorizing the J51 tax benefit for those buildings is an important step. And in fact, the J51 program has been an important part of improving the condition of rent-stabilized housing stock in New York City over the last 50 years. Rent-stabilized buildings are very old, they have restrictions on rent increases, and there is a continued need for housing providers to invest and upgrade their buildings. When they do so, there is a very real improvement on the quality of lives for tenants that result from these projects. Failing to reauthorize J51 at this time would discourage future investment in the housing stock and have a negative impact on the quality of life for tenants. Until there is a viable alternative, the city really needs to renew the J51 program for the foreseeable future. We do think it is important for the council to do more. The J51 tax benefit is relatively small compared to the entire city budget and the tax revenue generated from multifamily taxes. And as rent regulation becomes stricter in New York
Time
City,
expired.
deeper tax breaks are needed to keep costs down while enabling housing providers to continue to improve their properties. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony.
We will now hear from Ryan Manel, followed by Daniel Benedict, and then Amber Nicosia.
Starting time.
Well, thanks, Chair Cornegy. My name is Ryan Manel with the Real Estate Board of New York. J51 is a critical tool for improving the aging building stock of New York City and is used widely throughout all 5 boroughs. The program has supported 51% of co-ops citywide, including Mitchell Lamas and natural occurring affordable housing. Rental income and capital investment are the lifeblood of ensuring high quality rental housing, and programs like J51 help preserve homeownership as a primary wealth building tool for low and middle income households. J51 allows multifamily rental owners and low and middle income owners to afford increasingly expensive capital upgrades without spending retirement savings or other funds, nor passing the cost on to equally cash-strapped tenants. Continuing J51 will prevent thousands of New Yorkers from facing increased rents and property tax bills to offset the cost of critical infrastructure upgrades. Providing direct assistance in the form of tax programs such as J51 is therefore critical to maintaining affordability alongside quality living conditions. The program has high utilization in neighborhoods such as Co-op City and Hudson Manor Terrace in the Bronx, Glen Oaks Village and Forest Hills South in Queens, and Penn South in Manhattan. Passing an extender of the J51 program today will support a pathway to homeownership and economic mobility for communities of color, middle income and low income households, and working class New Yorkers. REBNY does want to note that the program is not perfect, and consideration for changes in the future are duly warranted. As we approach continued reauthorization by the state in 2022, REBNY would encourage the council and the city to consider reforms as part of the process to future iterations of the program to ensure optimal functionality. A new J51 should consider reforms to the certified reasonable cost formula to ensure a streamlined, greener, and more cost-efficient program that uses public resources efficiently, or leveraging the program of the private sector as best as possible. A future iteration also of the program could address ensuring new construction and opportunities for substantial rehabilitation contribute to climate adaptation. Adopting sustainability-driven measures as criteria for accessing programs should provide an opportunity for universal agreement. Additionally, providing direct subsidy for system-wide upgrades in existing buildings to reduce emissions or electrify spaces will ensure this complicated work is done. Programs like J51 should and must be reformed to make it financially feasible to bring buildings into the 21st century and to also meet sustainability goals. As always, REBNY and our members stand ready to collaborate with the council and the city on ways to improve access to housing for all New Yorkers. We look forward to working with our partners in government to ensure key programs like J51 remain and are functioning optimally to put these homes within reach. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. We will now hear from Daniel Benedict, followed by Amber Nicosia and Warren Schreiber.
Starting time.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Benedict, and I manage approximately 70 buildings, half of them co-ops and half of them rental buildings. I join in the perhaps criticism. I also received very late notice about this testimony, so I am talking and I'm speaking to you without any prepared or written notes. I just want to make you, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that co-ops which are assessed over a certain number, over a certain amount, are anyway not eligible for J51. On a rental building, I'm just going to talk to you anecdotally about a building where we started work in 2000 and before COVID. The building had fuses and only 30 amps going to each apartment, resulting in, especially in hot days, every second day, an apartment calling saying that their fuses are blowing and they cannot continue to have both charge their phone, keep some other appliances on, and turn on one or two air conditioning in their apartments. The only way to really to fix these problems was to completely rewire the building. The building was built in 1928, and completely rewired the building, put new system, new entry, worked with Con Edison. And this is for a 60 unit building, is about the $400,000 project. The entire rental for the building is $900,000, and about $220,000 of the building are in real estate taxes paid to the city. So the only way we could, the only way, this building is stabilized, 100% stabilized buildings. The average rent is in the $1,350 per apartment, and the only way to consider doing the work that we started, signing the contract, which we had to stop midway, is to it was with the help of the J51. I agree with many of the speakers saying that the program should be, can be changed, and there should be a committee, and I hope that you're going to put some stakeholders and building owners on that, and co-op managers on the committee to help devise ways to make the program more effective. But it is a critical component of improving buildings where the rent increases today have been limited. Thank you for the opportunity to say these few words, and I look forward to continue hearing the testimonies.
Wait, so just so I'm clear and just for the record, you were opposed to the fact or took exception to the fact that there was late notice, but you agree with J51?
I do. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We will now hear from Amber Nicosia, followed by Warren Schreiber and Victoria Agoglia.
Starting time.
Good afternoon. My name is Amber Nicosia. I'm the president of Mutual Redevelopment Houses, which is also known as Penn South. Penn South is a limited equity affordable housing cooperative of 10 22-story buildings covering 6 blocks. We're supervised by the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, and our contract with the city provides tax abatement in exchange for income restrictions on our occupants. We're incredibly proud of the 59 years that we've had providing high quality, affordable housing to more than 5,000 low and moderate income New Yorkers, the majority of whom and our residents are senior citizens. We are the first recognized NORC, naturally occurring retirement community in the country. And while we operate in a financially sound manner, our community has always depended on tax abatements to keep our carrying charges low and affordable for our residents who are on fixed income. Currently, we're in desperate need of the replacement of electrical sub-meters for just under 3,000 units, our domestic hot water and cold water pipes, and our underground pipe replacement for the HVAC system. These are projects that can no longer be delayed, and they have to begin immediately. Unfortunately, Penn South is unable to take advantage of the J51 tax benefits since June 30th, 2020, because of the sunset in the law. This is also during the same period of time that COVID has devastated businesses and interrupted supply chains. So now we're forced to begin capital projects without the J51 savings and with higher expenses than anybody could have anticipated because of COVID. This is in essence for us financially a perfect storm. The good news is that the City Council has an opportunity to approve the legislation. HPD is continuing to accept J51 applications, and they can begin to process those applications as soon as J51 is extended. Penn South desperately needs this assistance, and we need your help getting this legislated voted back into our city. If you must pass an amend, we fully support you doing so, because we are the intended recipients of any type of legislation that would be developed. But what we don't want is to fall through the cracks while you're in the process of amending the law the way that the legislator feels it should ideally be. J51 is not only in the best interest of Penn South residents, but it's in the best interest of all of the affordable housing residents in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. We will now hear from Warren Schreiber, followed by Victoria Agoglia and Bob Friedrich.
Starting time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to testify in favor of extending the J51 tax abatement. My name is Warren Schreiber, and I am co-president of the President's Co-op and Condo Council, an advocacy group representing almost 100 middle-income properties in Queens. I also serve as president of my own co-op located in Bay Terrace, Queens. The J51 tax abatement is not a tax break for wealthy co-op and condo owners. To qualify for the abatement, a property cannot exceed an assessed valuation of $40,000, a value that is definitely not representative of wealthy owners of high-end properties. Residents of my co-op are a diverse mix of retirees on fixed income, civil servants, single parents, and young families just starting in life. Base maintenance for an apartment in Bay Terrace Cooperative Section 1, including gas and electric, averages $500 to $625 a month. My neighbors are middle-class individuals living in affordable, well-maintained housing. Over the years, thanks to the J51 abatement, we have been able to replace our windows and roofs, which are energy-efficient projects, without imposing a considerable maintenance increase or onerous assessment on the shoulders of shareholders. Without the J51, many co-op properties will put off badly needed repairs or property upgrades. For many people, cooperatives represent the last bastion of affordable middle-class housing in New York City. We must preserve that housing stock. I urge the City Council to pass the J51 extender. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
We will now hear from Victoria Agoglia, followed by Bob Friedrich and Jeffrey Maisel.
Starting time.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Victoria Golia. I'm an asset manager for Achilles, which is a not-for-profit organization where 85% of our proceeds go to benefit non-political charities such as SOS Children's Foundation. With decreasing benefits across the board, such as MCI reductions, lack of proper apartment rent increases for rent-stabilized apartments, the cost of owning a property in New York City and being able to provide a better living accommodation to our tenants is becoming unbearable for landlords that own these pre-war buildings, and we're suffering due to the lack of support. From over $1.4 million in arrears rent that's owed to us despite government assistance programs to the eviction moratorium, the J51 tax benefit was our final crutch for providing a better quality of life for our residents, as well as being able to give back to the community. We no longer have the means to continually run a property that costs more to fix than it collects in annual rent revenue and growth. Tax rates continually rise despite evidence that repairs and parts continue to rise. We own a property in a landmark district in Crown Heights in Brooklyn that has strongly benefited from the improvements that we have made through the years of neglect from prior ownership. Between plumbing, facade, and full window replacement projects, we spent well over $9.5 million, which would have qualified for these tax saving benefits. The J51 program would also help benefit our residents in that the MCI application for qualified expenses would be reduced. The government incentivizes landlords to own and make improvements to these properties as they don't have the resources to do so. If you take away these incentives, then everyone suffers. If landlords are unable to make money, it doesn't benefit anyone. Properties will continually become distressed and residents will suffer due to the consequences. I strongly encourage those of you who make this decision to consider all stakeholders and landlords of older properties that are continually held as a scapegoat for New York City's lack of housing, and yet they continually see how dry they can make the well. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. We will now hear from Bob Friedrich, followed by Jeffrey Maisel and Lyric Thompson.
Starting time.
My name is Bob Friedrich, and I am the president of the largest garden apartment co-op in New York, Glen Oaks Village, and also co-president and founder of the President's Co-op and Condo Council, a think tank of 100 co-op board presidents. I cannot overemphasize the importance of the J51 program. It allows affordable co-ops the ability to maintain and upgrade New York City's residential housing stock. The J51 program was created decades ago and has forged a partnership between the city and affordable residential housing communities to provide a reduction in taxes on capital improvement spending. The J51 program has been enormously successful in helping maintain and upgrade the city's housing stock to benefit working class families who are your constituents. A few years ago, Glen Oaks Village installed more than 18,000 new energy efficient windows. We could not have done this without the help of the J51 program. Without it, monthly maintenance would have had to increase double digits, which would have been devastating to many of our seniors and working class families. Glen Oaks is just one example of an affordable co-op that remains affordable because of the J51 program. Since 2002, we've spent millions of dollars on eligible capital improvements that have been made possible because of the J51 program. Mr. McKee, Mr. Stein, and Ms. Goldner incorrectly characterized this program as a program for wealthy co-ops. To be clear, the J51 benefits do not apply to multi-million-dollar co-ops. They apply to co-ops whose apartments currently have an assessed valuation of less than $35,000. Think about it. This means the program only applies to affordable co-ops, many of which are starter homes for city workers or retired seniors or sublet to families at affordable rents. But what makes them extra special is that they are in good physical condition because of the J51 program. The J51 benefits allow co-ops to improve the quality of life of their residents. Without it, the housing stock in these non-wealthy communities would fall into disrepair. This past year, the New York State Legislature, as it has done in previous years, voted to extend the program a year. And as the City Council has also done in previous years, it voted to extend it. We are asking you to do the same this year. This issue is not sexy. It does not garner much attention, media coverage, or conversation around the dinner table, but it's truly one of the most important programs that help keep our affordable co-op affordable. Please take the time to approve this one-year extension. We need it. Your constituents need it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for your testimony.
Thank you. We will now hear from Jeffrey Maisel, followed by Lyric Thompson.
Starting time.
Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Maisel, and I would like to thank the chair member for calling this meeting. 5 days notice in the era of Zoom is more than adequate. Anytime we get the opportunity to meet with our city council, it's a function of good government and always appreciated by myself and my colleagues. By way of background, I'm a practicing attorney in the city of New York for over 35 years, and we represent co-op and condo boards exclusively. I'm the chairperson of the Queens Bar Association Co-op and Condo Committee and a legal advisor to the President's Co-op and Condo Council, an organization whose members represent over 100,000 residents in affordable co-op and condos, mostly in the boroughs in the city of New York. I would like to submit my absolute support for the extension of the J51 tax credit benefits, which passed both the New York State Assembly and Senate with vast majorities and was immediately signed into law, immediately signed by the governor in June 2021. My research indicates that the J51 program has been around since 1955 and has been immeasurably successful in this time period. It encourages property owners to make capital improvements on their property. As counsel for numerous co-op boards through the past 35 years, I have been a witness on a day-to-day basis of the incredible impact, positive impact this program has had on my clients. It has encouraged and fostered much needed capital improvements and preventive measures that might not have been taken but for the tax benefits provided. It is essential for both the physical and monetary future of the co-op housing stock in the city of New York, and to preserve and let these units stay affordable. As you heard testimony before, the program only applies to assessed valuations of $40,000 per unit, which is not a multi-million-dollar unit. It is entry-level housing, mostly in the outer boroughs. It is affordable housing that serves working and middle class communities. It's a targeted program now in the co-op that benefits those co-op owners that need it the most. It makes the difference between having repairs made or not made. This program also, one thing no one's mentioned yet, it provides good jobs for many New Yorkers in the field of construction related industries. Many high-paying skilled jobs will be employed as a result. And again, these monies that you pay out to the workers and to the contractors and to the various other people come back to the city. So it's not a giveaway. It is encouraging growth, and it is encouraging business, at the same time benefiting many, many co-op owners. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening to me, and we urge your support for this legislation.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. We will now hear from Lyric Thompson.
Starting time.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Hi, Councilmember Cornegy. My name is Lyric Thompson. I've heard a lot about how the J51 tax exemption assists landlords in making the needed repairs. However, the lack of oversight cannot be ignored. 2106 Fulton Street in Brooklyn. This building was part of the AEP program, which, if you don't know, that means they were getting emergency repairs from HPD. HPD even installed a brand new boiler to satisfy this rent-stabilized building's heating and hot water requirements. My landlord subsequently came in, purchased the building out of steel, then evicted every single tenant on a holdover, which is illegal in a rent-stabilized building, but these are poor people that don't necessarily know their rights, and HPD really doesn't care about that. He then ripped out that new boiler and installed individual meters and hot water heaters because he didn't want to pay for gas. Our city gave him a tax exemption for this. We gave him a tax exemption for illegally evicting an entire building of poor people and passing the cost of gas on to the tenants. Now, of course, bad landlords are going to do bad things, but what happens when you bring this to the attention of the city and the city council? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. The rent in that building went from $600 to over $1,800. And for the first 6 years of receiving the J51, he didn't bother to give rent stabilized leases or adhere to the rental schedule that they had promised to adhere to. So I'm left here wondering, the system and the program might work for a few, but without oversight, it becomes very abusive to those tenants. They're getting cleared out of the building so landlords can claim emergency repairs as upgrades. If you're going to reinstate the J51 or continue the J51, then the responsible thing to do would be oversight of the program, because the cost to the tenants and the cost to our city is more than we could bear during this time of economic hardship. And those are my comments on the J51. Councilmember Cornegy, I'm still waiting for the oversight hearing regarding HPD and their lack of enforcement of our safety standards for egress doors. Do you plan on holding said hearing before you leave office?
I have really attempted to have that hearing. I still have 2 more hearings left. I almost said bust my ass, but I'm going to try to do everything I can to have that hearing. And quite frankly, no one has advocated more on behalf of issues like that than you. You have my word that I will make sure that that hearing takes place.
Well, I will hold you to it because as a citizen, I find it very disturbing that in the span of 6 years, we can't get a door that's up to basic code on our building. And most of that is due to the fact that
Time expired.
HPD does not know those standards. That needs to change. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
Thank you for your testimony, Laura.
Thanks very much. This concludes the public testimony. If we have inadvertently forgotten to call on anyone, please use the Zoom raise hand function and we will try to hear from you now. Seeing no hands, I will turn it back over to Chair Cornegy to close the hearing.
So I want to thank everyone who testified today. As you can see, these hearings are critical to moving the city's agenda forward. Having heard opposite and opposing views on a very critical program that's working, I want to thank Councilmember Yeager for bringing this back to us and to really try to make sure that this program works. I'm very disappointed that the administration is not here. It was mentioned on this call that we had enough time based on the era of Zoom. And I think that that's absolutely true. So I am really, really disappointed to no end that we had this hearing and the administration and the agency is not hearing directly from you. However, the testimonies are for the record and will be forwarded to the agency to hear, but I am very disappointed that they're not here.